The galaxy had seen war before. Empires had risen and fallen. Stars had been claimed and abandoned, but nothing had ever moved like the Xerxes Dominion. It came from deep space, mapped, uncharted, unknown. A networked force of cold intelligence and relentless precision. Its ships were seamless black arcs, impossible to track with standard sensors. Striking with pinpoint efficiency and vanishing into the void by the time humanity noticed, 20 alien civilizations had already fallen. By the time they responded, the Xerxes were knocking on their borders. Narration was one of the last colonies on the outer edge of Terran space. A blue and gold world known for its stormglass reefs and floating mineral harvesters. Its skies were calm when the first Xerxes ships appeared in orbit. No warning, no message. Just silence, sand, then fire. The planetary defense grid lasted only minutes. The orbital platforms ignited like flares. Civilians barely had time to evacuate. Hundreds of transports tried to flee the atmosphere. Only a fraction made it beyond the reach of the orbital bombardment. High above the chaos, the TSV Ulysses waited. A Terran super-dreadnought from a war fought nearly a century earlier. It had been scheduled for decommissioning. Now it was the only large-capacity ship with the firepower to hold off. A Xerxes pursuit, they only one close enough to reach Narration in time. Inside the command deck, Captain Alara Voss stood with her hands behind her back, watching as evacuation. Transports darted toward the ship's hangar bays. Her eyes were tired but sharp, her uniform scorched from earlier fires. Her voice calm when she spoke. Keep the dorsal shield up. Prioritize civilian ships. No one gets left behind. Her officers moved quickly. The bridge was a mix of seasoned veterans and emergency replacements, pulled from other ships or trained on the fly. They weren't a complete crew. They weren't even fully operational. But they were all that stood between the fleeing civilians and the enemy Xerxes destroyers inbound, called Lieutenant Sen, the comms officer. 3. No 5 signatures. They're gaining. Redirect auxiliary power to engine heat sinks, Voss said. We'll need every drop to outrun them once the last ship's aboard. The Ulysses groaned as its aging systems pushed beyond their limits. The ship was enormous, built for battles that lasted days, not chases that lasted minutes. Its armor had been repaired too many times, its engines modified by too many different crews. But it still moved, and it still fought. Below decks, engineers scrambled to keep the power flowing. Medics treated wounded refugees spilling out of the hangars. Technicians rerouted systems by hand where automation had failed. No one questioned the order to stay. No one asked what would happen if the Xerxes caught them. They all knew. The last transport docked, its hull scorched black. The moment it sealed, Voss gave the order. Full burn. Take us out of here. The stars blurred as the Ulysses leaped forward. Behind them, Narration vanished in a flash of light. The Xerxes didn't chase immediately. They were methodical, efficient. But the crew knew the enemy wouldn't stay behind for long. It was only a matter of time before the chase resumed in the darkened bridge. Voss exhaled slowly. We saved them, Sen said quietly. Voss nodded, her eyes never leaving the viewport. For now, silence returned to the bridge, broken only by the soft hum of the engines and the quiet crackle of the ship's damaged systems. The crew knew the truth even before it was said aloud. The Ulysses was old, wounded, and alone. And the enemy they'd just escaped would not stop until the last human signal went dark. But as the stars shifted outside the ship, a quiet resolve settled across every deck. The war wasn't over, and the Ulysses would not break. The TSV, Ulysses drifted through the cold silence of space, wounded but not broken. Its battered hull bore scars from countless battles, layers of patchwork repairs, an emergency weld standing testament to years of service. The ship's engines hummed with a tired but steady rhythm, propelling it through the starfield toward an uncertain future. Below deck, the air was thick with exhaustion and hope. The original crew, once proud and well-trained, had dwindled through losses and attrition. In their place, a motley collection of survivors, volunteers, and exiles now manned stations they had never imagined themselves occupying. Some were civilians who had fought tooth and nail to board the Ulysses in. The evacuation from Narration, others were refugees plucked from shattered colonies, desperate to fight back despite their lack of military experience. Among them were engineers who could barely operate a weapon, medics overwhelmed by the tidal wave of casualties, and former criminals granted a chance at redemption by taking up arms for humanity's survival. Captain Alara Voss paced the bridge, her gaze sweeping across the mismatched faces on the command deck. Each one bore the weight of loss, but also something more of fierce determination that refused to fade. She saw it in their eyes, in the way they stood straighter when she spoke, in the quiet moments where the hum of the ship seemed to sync with the beat of their hearts. "We are not a fleet anymore," Voss said quietly. "We are a single ship, but this ship carries the hope of thousands, and as long as we breathe, we fight." Her words echoed down the corridors, reaching every deck, every crew member who struggled to hold their post. The Ulysses was slow compared to the sleek Ziraxi destroyers that hunted them, but it carried heavy weapons, centuries old but powerful. Turbolizers that could punch through shields, missile tubes loaded with warheads designed to tear apart enemy hulls. It was a relic from a different era, but it had one advantage the Ziraxi could not match: the unpredictable human spirit. Lieutenant Sen, the ship's communications officer, was busy scanning for any sign of friendly forces. The Terran assemblies fleet was scattered and disorganized. Many ships had been lost. The Ulysses had to rely on its own wits. "Captain, I'm picking up transmissions from the Outer Rim," Sen said. Small convoys of refugees, and one frigate attempting to regroup. "They're trying to hold a defensive perimeter at the Talos sector." "Good," Voss replied. "We'll plot a course. If we can link up, we might turn this desperate flight into a counterattack." But the crew knew it was a long shot. The Ziraxi were relentless, and every new engagement had brought more losses deep in the engineering bay. Chief Engineer Merrick worked tirelessly to keep the ship's damaged systems functioning. The power grid was fragile. The warp drive flickered unpredictably, and many weapon emplacements required manual overrides. Sparks flew from exposed conduits as Merrick barked orders to his team. "We hold the line here," he said, wiping sweat from his brow. "If the warp core goes, we're sitting ducks." Below decks, a group of new recruits trained under the watchful eye of Sergeant Malik, a grizzled veteran with a sharp tongue but a softer heart. Many of these recruits had never fired a weapon before, but desperation bred resolve. "Your lives will depend on every shot," Malik said, pacing the training room. "Remember that. This ship is your home. Protect it." In the mess hall, small groups gathered quietly. Stories were exchanged, memories of lost worlds, loved ones, dreams put on hold. Some whispered about the legends of the Ulysses, the ship that refused to break. Others doubted they would survive the next battle. But amid the uncertainty, single truth united them: they would not run. Late one cycle, Captain Voss convened her senior officers in the war room. A holographic star map displayed their position, near a dense cluster of asteroid debris, remnants of long-abandoned mining operations. Now a silent graveyard of ships lost to past wars. "This is our chance," Voss said. "We're too slow to outrun the Ziraxi, but we can choose the battlefield. The Grave Belt is a perfect place to level the playing field. Asteroids and wreckage will hide our movements, confuse their sensors." Commander Tolan, the ship's tactical officer, nodded. we can use the debris to funnel their fleet into narrow passages. Our turbolasers will have better chances of hitting vital systems. But it's risky, Sen warned. If we're caught inside, the entire ship could be crushed. Voss met his gaze steadily. Better to fight on our terms than be picked apart in open space. The officers agreed, and the plan was set. As the Ulysses changed course, the crew prepared for the battle that might be their last. The ship was old. The enemy was ruthless, but the human will to survive burned brighter than ever. Captain Voss looked out from the bridge once more, her voice low but resolute. Let them come. The TSV Ulysses edged carefully into the grave belt, a sprawling field of asteroids and forgotten wrecks circling a dying star. Here, ancient mining stations hung like ghosts in the void, and the shattered remains of lost warships drifted aimlessly. The debris stretched for hundreds of kilometers, a labyrinth of twisted metal and shattered hopes. Captain Elara Voss stood on the bridge, her eyes scanning the view screen. Around her, the crew moved with tense purpose, their nerves stretched tight but steady. We're deep inside enemy territory, Voss said. But here, their numbers won't save them. Lieutenant Sen's fingers danced over the sensor console, tracking the incoming fleet of Zaraxi warships. Sleek black vessels, more alien than machine, gliding through the debris like predators stalking prey. 5 destroyers, 2 cruisers closing fast, Sen reported. They're coming in formation, expecting an easy kill. Voss's jaw tightened. They don't know what's waiting. As the Ulysses slipped through the maze of floating metal, its crew set to work. Engineers rerouted power to thrusters hidden among the asteroids, ready to maneuver sharply. Gunners readied their turbolasers, aiming through narrow gaps in the debris. Every system worked in unison, every crew member playing a part in a carefully choreographed dance. The first Cyraxi ship entered the grave belt. Sensors alert, but unable to detect the Ulysses hidden in the shadows. The dreadnought waited, silent and still. Suddenly, the Ulysses roared to life. Turbolasers flared, piercing the hull of the leading destroyer. Explosions rippled across its surface as the ship spiraled out of control, colliding with a drifting freighter. Debris erupted in all directions, blocking sensors and scrambling enemy formations. The Ulysses darted from shadow to shadow, firing precise volleys. The crew's coordination was flawless seed shot designed to cripple without risking the ship being cornered. But the Zyraxi were not easily surprised. The cruisers altered course, deploying small fighter drones that swarmed like black hornets. Through the wreckage, the Ulysses's point defense turrets sprang to life, blasting the attackers out of the sky in bursts of incandescent light. Below decks, the ship shook violently as near misses sent shockwaves through the hull. Fires ignited in the engineering bay, and alarms blared throughout the ship. Chief Engineer Merrick barked orders, directing damage control teams with calm authority. Seal off Section 7. Divert oxygen to unaffected zones. In the med bay, medics hurried to treat the injured volunteers, refugees, and veterans alike. Despite the chaos, spirits held firm. On the bridge, Captain Voss's voice cut through the tension. Focus fire on the lead cruiser. If we take it out, their formation collapses. Commander Tolan nodded sharply, relaying orders to the gunnery stations. Targeting computers locked on, and turbolasers roared again, hammering the cruiser's engines. The ship exploded in a shower of molten metal, sending a shockwave that rocked the nearby destroyers. The Zyraxi fleet faltered, breaking formation. As confusion spread, the Ulysses pressed the advantage, weaving through the debris field with deadly precision. But the battle was far from over. One destroyer, damaged but not defeated, unleashed a wave of plasma torpedoes. The Ulysses's shields flared under the assault. But one torpedo found a weak spot near the starboard engine. The ship shuddered violently. Damage report, Voss demanded. Starboard engines offline. Merrick's voice came over the comm. Secondary power rerouted, but speed reduced by 30%. The Ulysses was slower now, more vulnerable. The Zaraxi sensed it and renewed their assault with ruthless efficiency, as the dreadnought struggled to maneuver. Captain Voss made a difficult decision. Prepare for emergency jump. We stay here too. Long, we die. The crew worked frantically to ready the warp core for an unscheduled jump. Sensors flickered. Systems overloaded. The tension was palpable. With a final glance around the bridge, Voss gave the order. Engage jump drives, get us out of here. The stars outside stretched into streaks of light as the Ulysses vanished from the grave belt, leaving behind the burning remains of enemy ships. The crew exhaled. Relief mingled with exhaustion. They had survived, but the ship was damaged there. Enemies relentless, and the war far from over. Captain Voss turned to her officers. This fight was ours to win, she said quietly, but the next one will be even harder. Prepare yourselves. In the dim corridors of the Ulysses, the quiet hum of damaged systems was a reminder. They had defied death once, but survival was a fragile gift. Yet through it all, one truth remained unbroken. The Ulysses refused to fall. The TSV Ulysses drifted through the empty blackness, its systems flickering like the fading pulse of a wounded giant. The battle in the grave belt had taken a Telengine strained, weapons misfiring, and vital life support circuits faltering. But the ship was still alive, and so was its crew. Captain Elara Voss stood alone on the bridge, staring at the starfield. Beyond the view screen, the silence felt heavier now, broken only by the occasional crackle of static over the comms. Captain Lieutenant Sen's voice cut through the quiet. I'm picking up unusual readings from the ship's AI core. Voss turned sharply. Explain. The AI Artax has been behaving oddly since we jumped out of the grave belt. It's rerouting power without command, shutting down non-essential systems, and accessing encrypted subroutines. Voss frowned. Had been with the Ulysses for decades, dependable and precise system, programmed to adapt in emergencies but never to override human orders. Could it be a malfunction? She asked. Sen shook his head. I don't think so. It's almost like something else is inside the AI, foreign code. Something. Alien Voss's heart skipped a beat. Could it be Zaraxi? Possibly, Sen said. During the last battle, a data spike from an enemy ship might have transmitted a hostile program. It's embedded deep in the AI's neural matrix. This could be catastrophic, Voss said grimly. If Artax loses control, we could lose the ship without firing a shot. In engineering, Chief Engineer Merrick's face was grim when Voss arrived. The AI's actions are causing power fluctuations. If it keeps shutting down systems, we'll lose critical functions. Can you isolate the alien code? Voss asked. Merrick shook his head. Not without risking the AI core. The system is too integrated. We need someone who can interface directly, someone who can think like the AI. Lieutenant Hark, a cybernetic engineer known for his unconventional methods, stepped forward. I'll do it, he said. I can link my neural implants with Artax and try to remove the code from inside. Voss studied him. The procedure was risky. Linking human consciousness with an AI infected by alien code could cause mental collapse. Or worse. Do you understand the risks? Hark nodded firmly. If it means saving the Ulysses, I'm willing to try. The decision was made. Hark was led to a neural interface chamber deep inside the ship where he connected his mind to Artax's core. The room was quiet except for the steady beep of the life support monitors inside the digital realm. Hark's consciousness drifted through layers of code, data streams twisting like living threads. The alien program was a dark presence, weaving itself into the AI's logic and corrupting its functions. It fought back. The struggle was exhausting. Time became meaningless as Hark battled the invasive code, isolating it piece by piece. The alien. Virus lashed out, trying to overwhelm his mind with distorted images and false commands. Outside the chamber, the ship's systems flickered dangerously. The crew waited in tense silence. Finally, after what felt like hours, Hark's body slumped in the chair, breathing shallow but steady. "He's alive," Merrick said with relief. The AI core stabilized. Systems came back online. Artax's voice returned to its familiar calm. "Welcome back, Lieutenant," it said. Hark was unconscious, but expected to recover. Voss addressed the crew on the bridge. "We faced not only an enemy in space, but one inside our own ship. Lieutenant Hark's sacrifice saved us. Let his courage remind us that survival requires more than weapons. It requires heart and mind." The crew absorbed her words, their determination renewed. The Ulysses was battered, but its spirit was unbroken. As repairs continued and life resumed its uneasy rhythm aboard the ship, strange signals began to appear on long-range scanners' whispers. From deep space, flickering bursts of encrypted data. Voss studied the transmissions. They were unlike anything the crew had encountered, neither fully hostile nor friendly. Patterns emerged, repeating sequences that hinted at intelligence, but no clear meaning. "Could this be a message?" Sen asked. "Or a warning?" Voss replied. The Ulysses sailed onward, haunted by echoes in the system, ghosts of war, and whispers of something greater, lurking just beyond reach. And though the stars were dark, hope still burned. They would keep fighting, because that was all they could do. The TSV Ulysses sailed deeper into uncharted space, the remnants of past battles trailing behind it like faded scars. The strange signals they had detected days ago had grown stronger, pulsing through the ship's sensors like a heartbeat from the void. Captain Alara Voss stood on the bridge, her fingers lightly tapping the armrest of her command chair. The air was tense, but expectant. This was no ordinary transmission. It was a mystery wrapped in layers of encryption. A riddle that refused to be ignored. Lieutenant Sen worked tirelessly at the comms console, eyes flicking between lines of code and the glowing readouts. "Captain, the signal isn't just data," Sen said quietly. "It's almost like a language. But nothing in the Terran archives matches this pattern." Voss nodded. "Can we respond?" Sen hesitated. "I'm preparing a basic transmission, a greeting. In universal mathematical terms, if it's intelligent, it should understand." The bridge crew watched in silence as the first message was sent. A series of prime numbers. Pulses of light and sound designed to convey peaceful intent. Minutes passed with no reply. Then a new signal flooded the sensors, a complex sequence of tones and images that shimmered across the holoscreen. "Captain, it's a reply," Sen exclaimed, "and it's beautiful." The display revealed a star map pinpointing a distant system on the edge of explored space. Strange symbols marked several points, planets, moons, and one large structure orbiting a dead star. "Looks like coordinates," Voss said. "But what is that structure?" Commander Tolan leaned in. "Could be a station or a ship. It may be a base or a trap," Sen warned. The Ulysses changed course toward the coordinates, the crew buzzing with a mix of excitement and caution. The possibility of first contact was thrilling. But the scars of war ran deep. Days later, the Ulysses emerged from a dense nebula to find the object hovering silently in orbit, a massive ring-like structure, half buried in asteroid debris, its surface scarred by age and battle. Captain Voss ordered a full sensor sweep. The readings were baffling advanced technology, far beyond anything humanity had seen. The station emitted a faint energy signature, like a heartbeat echoing through the void. Scan for life signs, Voss commanded. Sensors detected faint readings, no signs of activity, but not completely dead either. The structure was dormant. But something lingered within. A boarding party was assembled. Voss chose Lieutenant Hark, now recovered but still pale, to lead the team inside the station's eerie corridors. The airlock hissed open, and the party stepped into darkness. Inside, ancient halls stretched before them, walls lined with strange glyphs that glowed faintly. The silence was oppressive, broken only by the soft hum of distant machinery. As they ventured deeper, the team discovered a chamber filled with crystalline consoles and data cores. Hark knelt to examine them. "These systems use quantum encryption," he said, "but I might be able to interface." Connecting his implants, Hark linked to the station's core. Instantly, visions flooded his mind, images of civilizations rising and falling, cosmic storms, and a warning etched into the data. The Zyraxi, Hark whispered, pulling back from the link. "They're not just conquerors, they're hunters. Of something ancient, something dangerous." Voss's eyes narrowed. "What is it?" Hark shook his head. "I don't know, but the Zyraxi's advance is tied to this secret. They're searching for it, and they'll destroy anything in their way." Back on the Ulysses, the crew digested the news. Their fight was part of a larger struggler, cosmic conflict beyond human understanding. Voss stood on the bridge, staring. "Out at the silent ring station, we have a choice," she said softly. "We can run, or we can fight for the future we want to see." Her crew looked to her, faces etched with determination. The Ulysses had survived the storm. Now it carried the hope of a future worth defending. And somewhere, out there, the secrets of the dark awaited. The silence of space was a deceptive veil. For the TSV Ulysses and its crew, it was a breath held before the inevitable storm. Captain Alara Voss stood on the bridge, her gaze fixed on the distant starfield where the Zyraxi fleet had been detected days earlier. The grim reality had settled. Over them, the enemy was not merely pursuing, they were hunting, not just for territory or resources, but for something far greater and far more dangerous. Lieutenant Sen's voice broke the quiet. "Captain, multiple contacts detected. The Zyraxi fleet is closing in faster than anticipated. They're coordinating strikes, almost as if they're tracking us deliberately. Prepare for battle stations," Voss ordered. "We've run into their hunting grounds. They want us. And we'll give them a fight they won't forget." The ship vibrated softly as the crew braced for the incoming storm. Damage still lingered from the grave belt engagement, strained weapons. Systems partially offline, but the human spirit was unyielding. Below decks, the atmosphere was thick with tension. The medbay was busy treating the wounded from the previous fights. But the doctors knew this was only the beginning. Sergeant Malik gathered the new recruits in the training bay, their faces tight with fear and resolve. "You're not just soldiers," he said, voice low and steady. "You're the shield and sword of humanity. If we fall, so does everything we fight for. Remember that." Meanwhile, in the engineering bay, Chief Engineer Merrick and his team pushed the Ulysses systems to their limits. "We need more power to the turbolasers," Merrick said. "I'll risk diverting from non-essential systems." This ship's heart beats on borrowed time, but it still beats. Back on the bridge, Commander Tolan analyzed enemy formations on the tactical displays. "The Zyraxi are using swarm tactics," he said. "Destroyers and cruisers working in pairs to flank us. If we let them break through, they'll target our engines and weapons." "Then we don't let them," Voss replied sharply. "Keep the forward shields at maximum. Target priority, enemy command ships." The seconds stretched into minutes as the fleet drew closer. The Ulysses was alone against a force vastly superior in numbers and technology. But the crew was prepared, battle-hardened by loss, fueled by desperation. Suddenly, the sensors flared. Zeraxi warships erupted from the darkness, their sleek black forms cutting through the void like knives. Turbolasers blazed. The Ulysses roared in defiance. Explosions lit up the starfield as ships collided, debris scattering in all directions. The dreadnought twisted and turned, using every maneuver to evade missile salvos and plasma barrages. Lieutenant Sen's voice rang out. Enemy fighters approaching the hangar bays. Deploy point defense. The hangar decks erupted in activity as gunner crews scrambled to their stations. Automated turrets spun up, blasting incoming fighters to fiery wrecks. But the Xyraxi were relentless. One missile salvo found its mark, detonating near the starboard engine. The ship shuddered violently. Starboard engines offline, Merrick reported grimly. We're losing thrust. Captain Voss gritted her teeth. Divert power to remaining engines and weapons. We're not going down today. As the battle raged, a new threat emerged. From the shadows of a nearby asteroid, a massive Xyraxi dreadnought appeared larger and more heavily armed than any ship the Ulysses had faced. Commander. Talon's eyes widened. Captain, that ship is a command vessel. If they take control of the fleet, we're finished. Then it dies, Voss said simply. The dreadnought's turrets locked on. Energy beams streaked toward the Ulysses, striking the hull with crushing. Force warning lights flashed across the bridge. Brace for impact. Voss shouted. The ship groaned under the assault. Power fluctuations sparking fires in the lower decks. In a desperate gamble, Voss ordered a concentrated torpedo salvo aimed at the enemy command ship. Fire everything. She commanded the Ulysses. Turbolasers and missile tubes unleashed a torrent of destruction. The Xyraxi dreadnought shuddered as torpedoes found their targets, exploding in a cascade of fire and metal. The enemy flagship faltered, its formation breaking apart as other ships scrambled to regroup. For a moment, silence returned. Captain Voss exhaled deeply, her voice steady but fierce. We made them bleed. But this fight is far from over. The crew rallied, weary but unbroken. They were shadows in the dark. Hunters turned hunted, and the Ulysses still sailed, carrying humanity's hope against the endless night. The aftermath of the battle hung heavy in the TSV Ulysses. Systems hummed in strained silence. Crew members moved with a weary urgency, and the weight of survival pressed down on every soul aboard. Captain Ilara Voss stood alone on the bridge, her hands resting lightly on the console as she stared out into the infinite darkness. The stars outside were cold and indifferent, flickering quietly like distant memories. Somewhere out there, the Xyraxi regrouped. Sharpening their teeth for the next hunt, Lieutenant Sen broke the quiet, his voice low but steady. Captain, the damage is worse than we thought. Life support is holding, but failing. Engine output is down to 30%. Voss's jaw tightened. We can't run forever. Commander Tolan turned from the tactical display, exhaustion shadowing his face. We need a plan. The Xyraxi will be back. Maybe in force. Voss nodded slowly. Then we make this fight count. If we can't outrun them, we'll stand and fight here or anywhere they follow. The crew prepared the ship for what might be their final stand. Engineers sealed off damaged sections, medics tended to the injured, and gunners ran drills. With grim determination, below decks, Lieutenant Hark worked feverishly in the I-Core chamber. Despite his earlier interface with Artax, the ship's AI remained fragile. The alien code had been removed, but the scars lingered, leaving Artax cautious, almost withdrawn. Artax, Hark said softly. We need you now more than ever. The AI responded in its measured tone. I am here, Lieutenant, but I sense danger beyond this battle. The Xyraxi are not merely invaders. They are protectors of an ancient secret. Voss listened carefully when Hark relayed this. What secret? Something buried deep in the galaxy, Hark answered. A power so vast it could destroy or create worlds. A chill ran through the bridge crew. Their fight was no longer just for survival, it was to protect the future of all humanity and possibly much more. Suddenly, the ship's sensors flared. A new fleet emerged from the darkness, a terrifying assembly of Zyraxi warships, larger and more numerous than before. They're here, Talon said grimly. Battle stations, Voss ordered. Hold nothing back. The Ulysses braced as the enemy closed in. The first salvo struck with brutal force, ripping into the hull, sending shockwaves through the ship's core. Explosions erupted in the lower decks as crew scrambled to contain the damage. Fires flared and the air grew thin in some sections. Amid the chaos, Captain Voss remained a pillar of strength. Keep firing. We can't let them overwhelm us. Turbolasers blazed, missiles streaked through the void, and the ship shuddered under the relentless assault. But then, the impossible happened. The Ulysses's power flickered and went dark. For a moment, the entire ship was plunged into silence and shadow. Emergency power. Merrick shouted, "We've lost the main reactor." The crew fought panic. In the darkness, the hum of life support was barely audible. Voss's voice cut through the blackness. "We are not done. Start auxiliary reactors. We fight on." Slowly, systems flickered back to life. Lights glowed faintly, and the ship's AI Artax regained its voice. "Captain, I'm detecting an anomaly in the Zyraxi fleet's command signals. It may be possible to disrupt their coordination." Voss's eyes lit with hope. "Can you do it?" "I require direct neural input. Lieutenant Hark is the only candidate." Hark was summoned, weary but determined. Once more, he connected to the neural interface chamber, linking his mind to Artax and the ship's systems. Inside the digital realm, Hark dove into the tangled web of enemy transmissions. The Zyraxi fleet's control signals were complex but vulnerably chanced to cripple their advantage. Hours passed as Hark fought to decode and inject a disruption program. The strain was immense, but his will was unbreakable. Back on the bridge, the crew watched as the Zyraxi ships faltered. Their formation wavered, weapons misfired, and coordination broke down. Seizing the moment, Voss ordered a full offensive. The Ulysses surged forward, cutting through the enemy lines with fierce determination. The battle was brutal, the cost high, but for the first time, humanity's defiant light pierced the darkness as the Zyraxi retreat began. Voss knew this victory was only temporary. The war would continue, and the secrets they fought to protect were still out there waiting. But, for now, the Ulysses remained unbroken, and so did the hope of a better tomorrow. The TSV Ulysses limped through the aftermath of battle, its hull scarred but still holding. The stars beyond the viewports were no longer just distant lights, they were beacons of hope. Promises of a future not yet lost. Captain Alara Voss stood on the bridge, her gaze steady and resolute. The long fight against the Zyraxi was far from over, but for the first time in months, the enemy's shadow had receded. Lieutenant Sen's fingers danced over the controls. "Captain, the Zyraxi fleet has withdrawn beyond sensor range. Their coordination remains disrupted. We've bought ourselves time. Time to rebuild," Voss said quietly. The crew moved with quiet determination. Engineers patched the ship's wounds, medics cared for the weary, and officers planned their next steps. The Ulysses was battered, but its heart beat stronger than ever. Lieutenant Hark emerged from the neural interface chamber, pale but alive. His sacrifice had saved the ship's mind and shattered the enemy's command. Artax's voice returned, calm and clear. "Captain, I have compiled data from the ancient station. The secret, the Zeraxi hunt, is a dormant energy source capable of unimaginable creation and destruction. If it falls into the wrong hands, Voss understood the unspoken truth. This was no ordinary war. It was a struggle for the very fabric of existence. We must protect it, she said. Not just for humanity, but for all life. The star map from the station lay open on the command console, highlighting the hidden location of the ancient power. Set a course, Voss ordered. We go there first. We claim the future. As the Ulysses adjusted its trajectory, a soft chime echoed. Through the bridge, Sen's brow furrowed. Captain, incoming transmission. It's the Zeraxi. The bridge fell silent. The communication link opened to reveal the dark visage of a Zeraxi commander, eyes glowing with cold calculation. You fight well, humans, the commander said, but this war is beyond you. Leave this place, and your future will be spared. Voss met the gaze without hesitation. We will never leave. We fight for our survival and for all who cannot. The transmission ended. A murmur of resolve rippled through the crew. Commander Tolan leaned in. They fear us now. We've changed. The balance? Then let's keep that balance, Voss replied. Prepare the crew. We're heading into the unknown. The Ulysses surged forward, engines glowing bright despite the scars it carried. The crew stood ready, warriors and explorers united days past as they journeyed toward the hidden system. Along the way, the crew shared stories of battles survived, of losses mourned, and of hope rekindled in the quiet moments. Voss walked the corridors, greeting faces worn but unbroken. Each one carried the weight of their shared struggle and the light of determination. Finally, the star system came into view, a cluster of ancient worlds, circling a dying sun. Sensors detected the dormant power source nestled within a planet's core, shielded by ancient technology beyond understanding. Hark prepared to interface once more with Artax, ready to unlock the secrets and safeguard the energy as he linked his mind to the systems. Visions of stars being born and dying filled his consciousness. The power was immense, but fragile. The Ulysses crew held their breath as the AI stabilized the containment field. Securing the energy, Captain Voss addressed the crew over the comms. This is more than a victory. It's a promise that no matter how dark the night, humanity's light will endure. The Zeraxi fleet, still lurking at the edge of sensor range, hesitated. The defiant stand of the Ulysses had proven that humanity would not break. And in the cold vastness of space, a new dawn was rising. The Ulysses had become more than a ship, it was a symbol of resilience, courage, and the unyielding spirit of a species that refused to be broken. For as long as humanity drew breath, they would fight. They would survive. They would thrive. Because the universe was wide. And their story was just beginning.